Welcome to Sports Tonight Live presents The Cage. We've got another brilliant show for you this week. There's been so much going on in the world of UK MMA and the world of global MMA, and we're going to try to cover it all. With me in studio this week, Scroobius Pip,
Hello.
One of our favorite guests, and formerly sat in this chair as presenter.
Yeah. It's nice on this side of the table.
Yeah.
I like it.
Great to have you back. Really looking forward to chat with you. And then also my partner in crime, number 48, Brad Wharton. Brad, good to see you.
Good to be back as always, and I concur with Pip. It's much better to be on this side of the table.
You guys just don't like me. That's the thing. Man, there's so much going on. MMA shows are happening. MMA shows aren't happening. There's been big fight events. There's been all sorts of just amazing things going on. Let's start with UFC. Did you watch UFC, Pip, this week?
Yeah, it was amazing. I thought it was a great event.
Yeah.
All round, from the undercard to the main card. I thought, it really delivered.
Yeah, they just keep knocking them out of the park, don't they?
Yeah, completely. And it was great. It was great to have a Fox card that kind of had everything on it. It started with what you need for the casual fans, just two big guys beating the hell out of each other.
Yeah.
But also had a lot of great finishes, great technical battles, and just everything was displayed, it felt like. So I thought it was a real good one for that.
I was surprised the ratings for this card weren't as high as in previous.
It's not. It didn't have the big names on it, did it? But hopefully it will have kind of a knock-on effect, because it was such a solid event. Hopefully you'll get a lot of people watching it back. I think the UFC being clever by doing their kind of video highlights now, and because the way I find out with Bellator, that where you'll have the stuff on YouTube the next day, it's easier to bring more and more people in.
Sure.
So hopefully an event like this will have that knock-on effect where, it was solid.
Yeah, I was talking with somebody earlier this week about that exactly, and was wondering, sort of what the cross-section of fan base is now with the UFC moving to Fox. I mean, in America, you can watch UFC on Fox, UFC on Fuel, UFC on pay-per-view, UFC on, Fight Network, anywhere you look.
Which makes it incredibly confusing over here, because it's all on one channel, but you don't know when it's going to be or where you're going to get to see it, because it's the different deals. But
yeah, exactly. Fight of the night for you, Brad?
Belcher, Palhares for me.
Can you believe Belcher pulled that off?
I can't, no.
Yeah.
I was sat there, I watched it with my girlfriend, and I was like, this guy's going to get his leg ripped off any second. So my girlfriend's hiding behind a pillow. I've had my knee shredded like that before myself, so I'm hiding behind the pillow, and then for Belcher to actually not only get out the submission, but then come back and get the stoppage, absolutely fantastic. Yeah,
well, and Palhares sunk it in, didn't he? And I thought the same thing. I thought, oh no, here it comes.
So we've seen it so many times.
Yeah.
We've seen him just wrench people's ankles around, and not looking forward to it. But what performance from Belcher? The guy's had a rough couple of years. Looked like his career was over at one point with an eye injury, and he's come back and 2 fights away from a title shot, maybe.
Yeah, exactly. And Pip, we've got something in common. I'm going to go to a video clip of the last time you were on the show talking about your friend and mine, the Diaz boys. So let's have a look at Pip's prediction last time.
Really noticed about it was just how good is Nate looking now. He just seems to be, each fight he's improving exponentially. I mean, it's easy to remember, he's always been that, but it's Nick that's genuinely been the one just putting them precision punches in. And Nate's always suggested that and lent towards it, but in these last couple of fights, he's looked as good as his brother.
There it is. How good is Nate Diaz?
He's just getting better. And I really, I love Nate, and I picked him for this fight, but I thought Jim Miller was going to be his toughest test, because just stylistically, Jim can wrestle and overpower and hold people down, and that's always been the kind of a weakness of the Diaz's. And I really thought this would be the biggest test, but he went out there and did exactly what you want from him. He put on a great display. He acted like a bit of an idiot and kind of over like showboating that, which is perfect. That's what you love from a Diaz.
Diaz boys, isn't it?
And it was great. And then to finish Miller as well, the first person to have done that. I think it's insane. It's impressive.
This was a fight for me. I thought if ever a fight's going to be decided in the later rounds, this is going to be it. Because we know that Diaz has got fantastic cardio. They do marathons on the days off.
Yeah.
So those guys can go. And I was thinking, well, Miller's going to be wrestling Diaz. He's going to be getting on top, using that suffocating top control game that's been a bit of a kryptonite for the Diaz boys over the years. Diaz just blew him out the water. He didn't give him a chance to get his game plan off.
That's it. Yeah, he's just
phenomenal,
on another planet,
phenomenal performance.
I mean, he's his last couple times out, he's just come in and been so far above in class and skill, I think, than any of his opponents. And I mean, you said it. Just getting better and better and better.
Yeah, and I think it's becoming a hard guy to bet against, because there is just that grow each time. It's like, oh, he looked good in the last fight, but if he's going to keep making them same improvements, then he's well on his way. And I think it's great that obviously he's in line for a title shot. It's a long way off, but are realising, I think he's fought 16 times in the last 4 or 5 years or something. He's been the busiest fighter in the UFC for the last 5 years, which I really realised, but because he was jumping up and down weight classes, you don't kind of notice. So it's good that he gets a bit of time off to come back stronger, hopefully.
Yeah. And we've got a fan joining us on our digital wall, Paul Ryan. Paul, are you there?
I'm here. How you doing?
Yeah, real good, real good. Thanks for joining us. We're just having a chat about the UFC this week and Nate Diaz and his performance. What were your thoughts on the UFC this past weekend?
Yeah, Nate Diaz in particular, that fight went completely the other way to what I thought it was going to go. I just assumed that Jim Miller would go in, take him out, take him down, and just put a lot of pressure on him. But it didn't happen. And Nate Diaz just looked awesome in that fight.
Yeah, I think he's just getting better and better and better. We were just saying that every time out, he just seems to improve leaps and bounds over his last performance. So yeah, really, really excited to see where he goes next. Other highlights from the weekend for you? I think we've got that fiber optic problem again, so we'll come back to Paul shortly.
Yeah.
So other highlights from the weekend for you?
Well, I really enjoyed the Johnson-Barry fight. You know, like Pip said, it's good to see two guys just slinging leather at each other. I mean, as much as we love the sport and we love the technique and everything, sometimes it's just fun to watch a good old fight, you know, a good old-fashioned fist fight. And, you know, you can imagine those guys in the Wild West outside the saloon slinging bombs at each other.
And it wasn't anything, particularly the ending, it wasn't anything technical. It was hook uppercut, hook uppercut, hook uppercut, like repeatedly. But you saw in the last fight that when you've got someone as big as Johnson like that, his uppercuts, if he keeps throwing them, some of them are going to get through because it's such a powerful punch coming through there that he didn't have to be that technical. And Barry's one of the greatest technical strikers. His technique's amazing, but.
We just get inside and just get sloppy and messy, doesn't it?
I remember talking to Peter Ertz once, a famous Dutch kickboxer, and he was saying about, you know, the importance of actually slipping punches rather than just blocking them. He said, you know, if I'm a 260-pound man and you put your hand in front of your face and I punch it, it's still going to hurt just as much.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah. But, you know, LeVar Johnson's got a great story as well. You know, this is a guy who's survived a terrible shooting incident, you know, huge scars up his chest, shot about 4 times, I think, in one sitting. And you know, he's come back and he's made a career out of mixed martial arts and got into the UFC. You know, he's a guy that people thought, oh, he was just some slugger who's going to end up on the Strikeforce undercard, and here he is at the big show.
Yeah. Let's give Paul another try. Paul, can you hear us better this time?
Yeah, can you guys hear me okay?
Fantastic. I think we solved our fiber optic demons. So yes, we were asking you just before you went away last time, any other highlights for you from UFC at the weekend?
Yeah, just I just like to be surprised when I watch UFC and MMA in general, and just the emergence of Johnny Hendricks has just been huge. Just to watch that, and I think he's just so close to a title shot now. It's just great to watch somebody literally come from nowhere, take out tough champions, knock out John Fitch, and he's just really emerged as a top contender.
Yeah, I think there's sort of a, I don't want to say necessarily rebuilding of the UFC, but I think that there's probably, Pip, what we were just talking about with regards to the ratings for UFC on Fox. I think there's a bit of a pause in the UFC now, sort of building new personalities and bringing some of these sort of young guns in. And I think we'll see a new fan base start to build around these guys, and he's a great example of that.
It's definitely got a great look.
It's just right, as you said, there's like a transitional period at the moment, but I mean, for me, I'm really enjoying the fights. Obviously, it's not translating to ratings so much, but you know, for me personally, I'm really enjoying some of these fights. Yeah,
no, I agree, and I think maybe to some degree, Fox is, I don't want to say struggling, but kind of trying to find their feet with the appropriate presentation, with the mix of, you know, commentary and the guy sitting at the desk with, you know, sort of, there's a lot of moving pieces now that Fox is taking.
I think that's good. It makes it a lot more relatable to as a sport. You know, in America, that's how sport's presented. You go from the studio to the guys calling the action and back again. And I think that will make it familiar for American fans.
Yeah.
And, you know, in terms of building up the roster, I think the problem with this show is a lot of people were asking me who's fighting on this UFC event. And I was saying, oh, Nate Diaz, Johnny Hendricks. And they didn't really know these guys. They knew Koscheck. But that was kind of it. But after a performance like that from Nate Diaz, for example, and after the emergence of Johnny Hendricks, people are going to know these guys now because they have been on Fox, they've got the exposure. So next time they're on, people will be tuning in.
You reckon Fox needs a bit more Chael Sonnen?
Everyone needs a bit more Chael Sonnen.
Definitely.
How about you, Paul? You're a Chael Sonnen fan?
Big time. Who's not a Chael Sonnen fan apart from Anderson Silva? It's
just,
you know, the guy,
Chael will make
Anderson
a fan in a few months' time,
it's just, I mean, the story of Minotaur Nagara and the carrot.
Yeah,
With the
brilliant.
bus and stuff. It's just legendary stuff. And you know, the UFC, anytime they put him out there, Dana White distanced himself from a lot of what he says, but the guy's hilarious. He's just absolutely awesome to listen to. He doesn't come out with the usual cliches. You know, he's normally very honest. Even if he's technically lying, he still believes what he's saying. So it's a nice character to have around, I think.
But it's key the fact that he goes in and follows it up as well and delivers his fight against Anderson, although he slipped up. But I mean, more impressive for me was his fight against Stan, because he went in after a long time off and just looked amazing. His transitions were ridiculous, and just it was just real. He backed up everything he kind of chats about.
Better and better. Yeah. Paul, we're going to have to let you go. We're out of time for this segment. Thank you so much for coming on. We sure appreciate talking to you. It's always great to have fans on the wall and get to hear your perspective.
Definitely. Cool. Cheers, guys. Take care.
Thanks a lot.
Cheers, Paul.
Join us when we come back. We're going to have Jeff the Snowman Monson on our digital wall next. We'll be talking a bit about what's going on with him. He's got some upcoming seminars and things like that. So we'll be right back on Sports Night Live presents The Cage. Welcome back to The Cage on Sports Night Live. My in-studio guest this week, Scroobius Pip. Pip, so glad you're here.
It's great to be here again.
I mean, you've sat in this chair. You've sat in that chair. You're obviously a consummate MMA fan.
Yeah, definitely.
What's been going on in your life recently?
Or just gigging and touring, and now I'm planning out the festival schedule and rigorously trying to make sure it fits around the UFC schedule and the MMA schedule to make sure that I can either drive home in time for the live event or have a hotel that's got good enough internet for me to stream live legally. Obviously, I've got my deals, I've got everything in place. So just working on loads of stuff. It's been, I said, done a full Euro tour beginning of this year and big UK tour end of last year. So it's been all working on my solo record, which I released on my own label and things like that. But yeah, it's looking forward now to all the future shows to come.
And how's it been out there touring? The solo's been well received by the fans?
Yeah, it's been great fun. It's all been going down really well, and it's that weird thing because I run my own merch booth and things like that, and I run my own Twitter. It's always great seeing on the road that people know that they'll get an extended conversation out of me if they bring up the recent UFC events or the MMA events and things like that. It's that kind of thing. It's always, because particularly when you're in that zone, things like MMA, and I'm a football fan as well, things like they're the perfect escapes from if the rest of your day is you're waking up, you're travelling to a gig, you're doing a sound check, you're prepping the merch, you're doing the gig, you're selling the merch. It's that constant thing. It's great to have those escapes of things like that. So I love it.
And so, what does your festival tour look like?
It's looking really busy. It's pretty much from, in a week or two, really, it starts to be one or two festivals every weekend and just churning through it. But it's good. It's mad how early they start now. I did my first festival on Saturday. Did you? It's like they've already begun. The festival season's already here. So, but yeah, again, I managed to make it back in time for UFC on Fox. So that's the priority with every event.
Exactly. And I think it's good when. You mentioned it's kind of a good outlet for you and great outlet for the fans when they come up and they come to your booth and they get to have a chat
and interact and engage. Really? Yeah, completely. Yeah, it's always good and always causes some good conversations and arguments.
Yeah. Take care of all those people that aren't Diaz fans out there.
Yeah, exactly.
You could single them out on stage, couldn't you? You see that guy over there? He's not a Nick Diaz fan. Get that guy out.
I did. Or weirdly, last time I was in Holland, I was on stage and I mentioned, because it was just before the Overeem Brock fight, and I mentioned Overeem's fight coming up, and obviously my fan base in Holland does not cross over with the MMA fan base in Holland, because at the UK ones there's always a bit better there. Everyone was like, what's this guy talking about? What? I was like, I thought I was doing a bit of a say the town, hometown kind of thing, but it didn't really work.
Yeah. I've had a couple of those moments in foreign lands when you scream something out to the crowd and then it's just dead.
Okay,
that's just you though.
Yeah, thanks for that. And so your very next gig, what's next for you?
I've got a gig coming up in Tooting. That's next Friday for John Kennedy XFM, just a small one, and then it will just be all the festivals, a Latitude Festival, Camp Festival, Sunflower Fest, just all sorts of stuff. So,
and you're working on lots of new material for that as well.
Hopefully, because Dan Lassac, who I've had 2 records with, has got a solo record out soon. So when that comes out, we're going to start working on our 3rd record. So it's that constant thing. It's always either shows or writing or or working on the label. So it's great to have that constant run.
Yeah, so you guys do your live performance of that show.
Yeah.
It
was the anniversary of our first big single was the 5-year anniversary recently. We did a live performance from Dan's living room and a bit of a web chat type thing. Yeah. And again, it was another one where if you did watch, one person asked a question about who's going to replace Overeem, and I started rambling, and Dan had to kind of stop and say, right, we're doing a general web chat. I don't know, because Dan's not a fan. He didn't know what's going on about, but yeah, all good fun.
We're really looking forward to seeing your tour.
Excellent. Cool.
Lots of other stuff going on. Big show got canceled this week. MMA Show Live. I know you were on tap to go do some things. I was on tap to go. A lot of people really disappointed with that whole thing.
Absolutely. I mean, I'm disappointed first and foremost as a fan, because what an amazing experience that would have been. I mean, they had literally a who's who of MMA personalities on that show. Randy Couture, BJ Penn. You know, you name someone, the chances are that they were going to be there.
Yeah.
So it's a huge letdown for all the MMA fans in this country, and obviously the circumstances around the cancellation of the event are less than stellar.
Well, they always are when things like that get canceled. I mean, I've been involved in quite a lot of things that get canceled sort of last minute. You see something you're really looking forward to, and I mean the facts are never clear. I mean, people are always looking to I guess sort of point the fingers or make, and sometimes it's just everything comes together.
I mean, obviously we don't want to make any allegations and everything, and things are still going to be coming out, and I suspect things will still be coming out for some time now. But it seems to be that there's two organisers, and something's obviously not gone right with the funding for the show.
Yeah.
There are allegations that the funding problems have been going on for a while now, that the organisers knew about this and didn't do anything about it. Now the organisers are pointing fingers at each other, and it's just turning into one of those horrible messes.
It's just shockingly last minute. I felt with all the names involved in particular, you'd imagine if it was happening, they would know now. But if as it hasn't, they would have known a little bit in advance. With people like Dan Henderson and Ben Henderson, like active UFC fighters lined up for this, you'd think there'd be more. Yeah, they'd definitely know what's going down. So it's just a shame, as we were discussing earlier, people will have trains and hotels and whatever else booked. And
well, we've had a couple guys on the show on the digital wall that we're really looking forward to coming over, and active UFC guys.
Exactly.
They've said, I can't wait to come over. And obviously we're trying to line them up to come on the show. We were hoping to get Randy in the studio today. So personally for me, I'm crushed, because I mean these are all all my heroes, and I'm a fan just like you, and I just get to go, and are you kidding? I get to go talk to these guys. And
there's a knock-on effects as well. There's hotels in Birmingham that are going to have a lot of empty rooms this weekend. There's people who've been hired to work at the event who are going to be without a paycheck. There's fighters who have maybe cancelled seminars or not booked themselves into seminars for the day because they're expecting a paycheck. And
well, exactly.
I've got some sources in America who've been telling me that they've got fighters who haven't received money that they were supposed to. So if this whole thing has fallen apart because of a problem with the stand building company, which is what the promoters have said, why have these fighters not received their payments? Why have their flights not been booked? And that to me raises some questions. And I think something that's really important is the fact that the organisers have said they sold 2,000 programmes at £10 each. All that money's going to a PayPal account. Where's that money? Who's got it? This needs to be found out. If you've bought tickets, you can get a refund. Contact your ticket provider, get yourself a refund. Unfortunately, you're going to be out of pocket on your hotels and transport. But for me, there's potentially £20,000 floating around somewhere that we need to find out what's happened with.
Absolutely, and like you said, the guys that were coming over from America, a lot of those guys, bought their tickets waiting for reimbursement, and is that going to happen? I mean, like I said, we've seen a couple events in and around UK MMA that have gone that way. There was a big Scottish promotion a couple years ago that went that way. There was a big sort of super seminar that was supposed to happen. Yeah, exactly what I'm talking about. And we tend to see these things, and I was reading the list with my wife probably 2 weeks ago. Saying, you've got to come to this event with me, because I'm going to be working this event and talking to all these guys. And I started rattling off, and she says, there's no way they're going to get all these people in one room.
It did look almost too good to be true,
Yeah.
didn't it? I said it was that mixture of, as the thing that got me was the current active roster amount. Because again, you'll have certain seminars and you'll get a one or two, ex-UFC names or big names just in the jiu-jitsu world and things like that over. But the fact that there was so many active and legends kind of mixed in there.
It's not cheap to get these guys. Yeah. It's not cheap to get Randy Couture to come over and spend a day at your seminar or your trade show.
Even the UFC didn't have that many big names on when they did their Fan Expo. And that, again, to me, is like, too good to be true. If something sounds too good to be true, quite often it is.
Yeah,
But
exactly.
yeah, I mean, like I say, we don't want to make any allegations or anything. That the facts are still coming out. I would like to come back to this maybe in a couple of weeks' time when we do know a little bit more and
Yeah.
we've
See
heard
where
all
you
sides
stand,
of the story from all people.
Yeah, I'm sure a lot, as you said, I'm sure a lot will come out in the coming weeks because, I mean, people are going to be, you know, wondering what's going on, wanting their ticket money, wanting their, you know, whatever the case may
Yeah.
be. And again, I guess I'm most sorry for the fans, as you've already said, is because, I mean, you know, I can't tell you how many people have rang me or talked to me about, God, I can't wait for this thing, I can't wait for this thing, and then my phone was going nuts the other day.
Yeah, I mean, this time with the financial situation this country's in, people don't have money to throw away on hotels and
Yeah.
train tickets. And, you know, look past the money, it's an experience. I was really looking forward to this
That's
weekend.
it.
I was absolutely gutted when I found out it was cancelled.
Yeah.
And, you know, it wasn't costing me anything. So I can't imagine how it must feel for people who maybe spend a couple of £100 on hotels, transport, booked time off work, organised people to look after their kids, whatever, gone out of their way, got really psyched up about this event, and now it's kind of all got down the pan for, you know, less than honest reasons, shall we say.
Yeah, yeah. Well, that's the truth. And again, it doesn't necessarily reflect well on UK MMA as a whole, does
No.
it?
I mean, I had a conversation with one of my sources in the US who does a lot with managing fighters and promotion of fighters, and I just got this really sad email off her the other day saying, you know, are there no honest businesses in UK MMA? You know, because I want to come and do business over here, but now I'm just thinking, well, what's the point?
Yeah.
You know,
Yeah.
and we don't want the UK MMA industry to get that kind of reputation. You know, there's people out there doing a lot of hard work in this industry to try and give it a good name and a good reputation. We don't want people spoiling it. I guess the message here is get your tickets to Senny now.
Yeah, yeah. Well, I guess, you know, we talk about the guys that are doing hard work in the UK, and, you know, we should probably give a mention to some of those guys because there are a lot of guys. I mean, you know, Dave O'Donnell's doing good things. Bama's doing good things. Cage Warriors is doing good things. You know, there are several media outlets that are doing really, really good things. Joe Long at Senny. In fact, I've got a latest press release that we'll read in the next segment from Joe. But I mean, there are a lot of guys that are really working hard, guys and girls, I should say, that are really working hard to you know, put UK MMA on the map. And
Me and you, Bret.
Well, exactly.
We're doing our bit, aren't we?
But do you think this could have a knock-on effect then? Because I think Obama in recent years have been reaching out more and more to get more US fighters over and things like that, and been doing a great job of it. But would something like this now have a knock-on effect? Although it's obviously different people, but as you were saying, if it's tarnishing
It's
the
still
image
UK,
of
isn't it?
UK promotions, it could be even more serious than a great weekend taken away. It could genuinely
Absolutely.
affect.
I mean, that's the kind of the rumblings I'm
people
getting
over,
from
yeah.
people in America. You know, if people are
It's
worried
ridiculous.
about sending people over and doing business over here, it's going to make it very difficult because people are going to start wanting payment up front. And yeah, that just doesn't always happen with the UK industry. You know, people have to wait till they've sold tickets to pay fighters unless they're willing to take a massive financial hit. So that could make it, you know, make promoters think, well, it's not worth getting American stars in, which is going to upset the British fans. And yeah, it's a massive shame.
Yeah. Well, and I think too that the fact that, I mean, we're days away, and that's when it gets canceled, right?
Yeah.
So, I guess it gives the appearance of a bit of really shady dealings, doesn't it? Because you know, didn't you know 2 weeks ago that you're having issues? Didn't you know a month ago you're having issues?
You know,
No, 3 days
I've seen things over the past couple of days that, you know, would strongly suggest that the organisers did in fact know about some of the financial problems this show was having. The fact that they've carried on with it, well, you could say, you know, they had a week to sort things out. You could say that they knew it wasn't going to come off and they were just biding their time. Which obviously isn't good.
Yeah. We're going to go to break. When we come back, we're going to talk about Senny. Just before we go to the break, I'm going to read this latest press release from Senny. Fighters Inc. founder Joe Long. We're proud of the fact that we have delivered 11 successful Senny shows. And on the 2nd and 3rd of June, we return to the XL London with a stacked expo as usual. The MMA Weekender is 1/6 of the Senny experience, which will attract over 25,000 visitors with great exhibitors, events, and guaranteed opportunities for fighters and fans to meet the movers and shakers of the industry. Senny 2012 is the event, and Fighters Inc. are the promoter you can trust. I think that says it all, doesn't it?
Absolutely. I mean, Senny have got a track record at the end of the day. They've never had an event cancelled, so.
Exactly. And when we come back, we're going to talk to Jeff the Snowman Monson, who's got a super seminar at Senny, and we'll talk a bit more about that. So join us when we come back on Sports Night Live presents The Cage. Welcome back to The Cage on Sports Night Live. We're still having issues with our fiber optics in the studio today, so we will come back to the digital wall shortly. In the meantime, let's talk about UFC coming up, UFC on Fuel.
Yeah, looking forward to it. It's another one of those cards that doesn't have all the big names on, There's no, you know, former champions or
well, here's
whatever,
the card
but
here, isn't it?
future champions, there's potentially a couple of big ones on there. Obviously, the main event, the Korean Zombie, one of my favourite fighters, Chan Sung Jung, absolutely love that guy. And Dustin Poirier is the next big thing for me in the featherweight division. That's going to be a phenomenal fight.
Yeah, so what's your pick then?
I don't know. It's one of those fights. I'm getting splinters because I've been sat on the fence so long about it. I'm going to go with the Korean Zombie, but that's the heart talking more than the head.
I mean, I feel you can't. He's legit now. He had a few scraps early on and looked great, but it was. You're not really saying technically he's the most amazing guy, but he had some amazing scraps. But then in his last fight to just come out and get that incredibly quick knockout, and you've got to start taking him seriously rather than just he's got the best nickname and you know he's going to come out swinging. Other than that, but he's got it now.
Well, he's kind of dropped that zombie style, you know, just standing there with his hands out, swinging bombs. You know, he's tightened up his striking. You know, he looked great in the rematch. And first twister in the UFC, incredible.
Garcia, exactly. I mean, even that to get the twister to now have the fastest knockout and have one of the fights, or definitely the fight of that year with Garcia, the first fight with Garcia. It's like
definitely.
Well, you can't question the guy at the moment.
And Poirier, you know, he doesn't have the big names on his ledger yet, but I think it's just a case of I mean, this guy's he won his last fight by a mounted triangle armbar, which you know it's not something you see very often. He got a daft choke of Pablo Garza before that. He's a young kid, and he's very, very good. And for me, the winner of this fight has got to go on and fight the winner of Jose Aldo. And the guy he's fighting, whose name I've just forgotten. Eric Koch. Yeah, we talked about him last week. Eric Koch. I mean, we could potentially be seeing a Dustin Poirier Eric Koch title fight, which to me is a real like next generation thing.
Yeah. Do you think we miss out a bit in the UK because I think the UFC uses Fuel as almost a feeder show, right? I mean, because we've talked about this before. I think for a lot of UK guys, they get in the UFC and man, the water's deep, and they don't get it until they get there, and then they think, oh my God, these guys are so good. Whereas you know, UFC on Fuel, it's a great way for these guys to come up. It's a great way for them to get some experience on the big show, right? I think we miss out on that in the UK.
Yeah, I think it's going to be changing now. That I mean, with the schedule they've got, the UFC are expanding the roster so much. I think what we're moving towards is a UFC Europe and a UFC South America and a UFC East Asia, etc. And I think guys will be getting a better experience of going against guys at a similar level, but on a big show, which is going to be building their confidence up. So when they do hit the big show and they do hit the deep waters, they will be slightly more prepared for it. And we've seen guys in the UK scene take a massive step up in competition. You know, talk about Che Mills the other week against McDonald.
Huge step.
Che's a great fighter, but in all honesty, McDonald is so much better. It was kind of like, what a rude awakening. I think in the future we're going to see guys being brought on a little more slowly as the roster expands and guys have a few more rungs on the way up the ladder.
Yeah, well, I think we've seen Maguire do well in the UFC.
But
I'll never forget his first post-fight interview, and he grabbed Rogan on the shoulder. He says, "Are you real? Are you real?" I mean, you know, I can only imagine what that must feel
I mean,
like.
just talking about the depth for a smaller card, just jumping out at me is Cerrone Stevens. They're both
that's gonna
huge
be a sick
fighters
fight.
with real experience, both put on a show and and come out and go for it. So again, there really is the depth there.
I think this is. I mean, we've got Tom Lawler at the bottom. We've got Amir Sadala. Love to watch Amir Sadala fight.
Fabio Maldonado is one of my favourite fighters at the moment as well. I first saw him fight live at UFC 120, I think, against James McSweeney. And man, that was a boxing clinic. He lost the first round 10-8 and then came back and absolutely demolished McSweeney, broke his ribs. He was very unlucky to lose his second fight, I thought, and I'm picking him against Pacrite. Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah, I think that's a fantastic card, like I said, top to bottom, and it's great to see an opportunity for guys to come in and get that experience on the big show, and build confidence and sort of get away from. I mean, it's one thing when you're fighting in front of a hometown audience, isn't it? I mean, you're fighting against guys you're fighting in front of guys you've sold all the tickets, and now you're there and it's your night, but it's totally different.
It's not only that. It's not only the chance to build up the confidence. It's a chance for these guys to build up a following. You know, they're out on free TV in America. I believe it'll be broadcast on UFC.tv everywhere else around the world. This is a chance for guys who might not maybe throw $60 down on a pay-per-view, but might, I'll flick Fuel TV on tonight, I'll see what's going on. And they're going to see guys like, George Lopez. I mean, that guy came in last time as a late replacement, fought Matt Riddle, put on a hell of a fight. And Amir Sadala's a guy who loves a tear-up, People are going to tune into that fight, they're going to love it.
Lawler's one that's great at winning over the casual fans because he's just such a character. So he'll do something ridiculous on his way down to the cage, no doubt. And then if he puts in a good performance, you've got a new favourite there.
Yeah.
I think going off subject slightly, but just mentioning Shea and the UK guys going over, I thought Hathaway needs
Yeah,
a
we
mention
missed him
from
at
the
the show,
weekend
didn't we?
because
Yeah.
I thought they kept talking about how his opponent had a long layoff, but he'd been off for at least a year, I think, and I thought he looked really sharp and tight. His elbows were looking great. He's been watching John Jones. He's throwing elbows from the outside.
I think Hathaway's
now.
such a technical guy anyway.
And I thought he looked, I thought he looked amazing at the weekend.
Yeah.
So I just wanted to
I'm glad you came back to that because we missed him at the top.
He had a tough one against Mike Pyle, but I mean, if you look to his fight before that against Diego Sanchez, he demolished Diego Sanchez. And this guy's still young. I think he's still 24, 25. Long way to go.
It's a great fighter.
Yeah. So, like I say, UFC just keeps getting better and better and better. Other things to talk about? Super Fight League this weekend?
No, we're going to get up to James Thompson, man. I'm a big James Thompson fan. I used to love watching that guy in Pride.
Yeah.
And he's still putting on the show today. He's not the most technical guy out there. He never will be. He's never going to be a UFC champion, but he's a guy who goes out there and he leaves it all in the cage.
Yeah.
And, it's kill or be killed with him, but you're guaranteed that, either he's going to knock someone out or he's going to get knocked out, and it's going to be a good performance.
Yeah. Well, I think Ken
you can't help but
Pavia,
like the guy as well.
I think Ken, we had him on the show. I think Ken Pavia's doing a great job matchmaking. In a sort of difficult environment to matchmake, I think. And I think
I mean, the Indian market's a strange one, and the first show was kind of sold on the basis of it being a real pro wrestling event, and I think it kind of shocked some of the Indian fans with the brutality of it. The second show didn't do as well attendance-wise, publicity-wise. But this third one, I mean, they got something like 10,000, 12,000 people in there. Yeah. Apparently they had the local police saying that they were going to shut the show down if they had more than 10,000 people in. But they had people sitting up the stairs in the aisles, and the crowd sounded like they were loving it. It wasn't a crowd who were in there expecting a pro wrestling show. It was a crowd that knew what they were in for and were really enjoying it.
I think they're doing a lot of the right things, and I think the thing that I like about Super Fight League, I mentioned this before, is they're not necessarily kind of following the crowd and following the rules, but they're sort of redefining what an MMA event should be. And for the Indian market, boy, they've hit it right on the head, I think.
Yeah, and our little birdie's telling me as well that they might be heading a little bit closer in our direction as the year and maybe next year goes on. So we might get a bit of Super Fight League action here in the UK. Maybe then we'll get our Super Fight League blazers.
Maybe.
We can only hope.
I just want the Super Fight League microphone.
Well, I've said it before and I'll say it again. Get Hollywood to Bollywood. It's got to be done.
Exactly
that guy was terrible.
That's exactly right. Yeah. Hollywood to Bollywood. Super Fight League. So we've got some local shows coming up. Again, some local shows sort of postponed. I'm looking forward to the next Ultimate Challenge as well.
They've got a really stacked card.
Yeah.
I mean, say what you will about Ultimate Challenger, and a lot of people have got a lot to say about those guys, but this card coming up should be pretty exciting.
Yeah.
We've got a great featherweight title fight, Ashley Grimshaw and Nathan Beer.
I love Ashley Grimshaw.
Yeah, those guys are seriously talented.
Fight, yeah.
Jermaine Facey and Jake Bostwick's going to be sick. Yeah. You've got Spencer Stewart on that card, I believe, against... I forget who Spencer's fighting actually, but Spencer's great. He knocked out Corey Tate last time, which was a huge surprise. Came in, this guy's basically known as just a grappler. Knocked Corey Tate out in about 11 seconds, and this is, I've been amateur boxing for 18 years. So get that one quiet. I think Corey's on that card as well. Yeah. Tommy Maguire versus Kurt Warburton. Kurt's fought in the UFC. Tommy was on the season 9 of Tough very briefly. Both guys got legit skills. That's going to be an absolute war.
Yeah, no, I agree. And we've got to mention White Collar last week. I just want to give a shout out to Andy Gear who took Ian Freeman. He took him the distance.
Yeah, he did. Yeah. I don't know whether Ian was maybe holding back a little bit on him. But he looked pretty aggressive at some points during the fight.
Well, I've been up close and personal with Andy, as you know, and Andy's. I mean, he's no cream puff. He's a tough guy, and he's got his head's like a brick wall.
Yeah, and Ian's not the kind of guy who's going to be shown up in the cage, shall we say, especially by Andy. But it was good actually. I commentated on that fight, and it was it was nice to commentate on the Ian Freeman fight. Yeah. I remember going and watching him fight UFC 38 years ago, so it was nice to be able to call what was probably going to be his last fight.
Well, yeah, and then and they raised a lot of money for charity, didn't they? So,
exactly, and that's the most important thing there. This was a charity fight. Obviously, Ian's got that cancer charity very close to his heart. Yeah. It was nice to be a part of that, and I got to commentate on the second game of Ultimate Ball as well. So
well, there you go. There you go. So speaking of charity fights, you're several years younger than me, even though you just had a birthday. If you could fight anybody for charity, who'd it be?
You.
Me?
Yeah. I don't know. Maybe the organisers of the MMA Show Live.
Yeah. How about Pip?
A random subliminal suggestion there, just throwing up there. Yeah. Would you like to fight?
No, I've had a few injury problems and health problems over the past year, but I'm getting back in there. I'm going to be going down to Tsunami to train.
Oh, nice.
So hopefully, I don't know by the end of this year, but certainly next year, I'm going to have some kind of, whether it's a K1 fight or an MMA fight, I'll be doing one of the two. So we can document my my progress and hopefully not failure on this show.
We've got Andre on next week. How about Andre?
Andre, well, you see, I've offered him out before, but he's a bit bigger than me. So maybe
that's
not.
all right. Andy Gear was bigger than me.
Yeah, we went to the UFC media day together.
Yeah.
And after a few beers, there was talk of having a little grappling match on the floor in front of all the video game journalists, but I thought better of it in the end. So.
Yeah.
Resisted.
No video.
Yeah, he was about 240 pounds at the time, and I just wasn't fancying it at all.
Yeah, fantastic. We're out of time for this segment. Join us when we come back on Sports Night Live presents The Cage. Welcome back to The Cage on Sports Night Live. So other UFC news, Edgar Henderson?
Edgar Henderson too.
Yeah, what are your thoughts about that?
Well, I know you had a great idea for a new
Yeah,
game for
I
Frankie
think
Edgar.
Frankie should change from the answer to the Echo, because this is his third pair of fights in a row. He loves a rematch.
Yeah.
No one fights him once.
Yeah.
So he's had a BJ Penn first and then a Gray Maynard, and now he's having another pair of fights. So
The Echo, I think,
I think that's
pretty
got to
good.
be his new name. I think he should change
And
it.
I'll tell you
fits.
what, I'm not sad about that one little bit, because
No, it's
every
great
single one of
fights.
those
Again,
fights absolutely
I
phenomenal.
tweeted about that and people thought I was complaining, but he's been amazing in all of them. And it's one of the reasons, I mean, I thought Henderson was amazing in that last fight and he blew me away. He really stepped up. But it's that thing of, I think every time Edgar's come back, he's done, like the first time he fought BJ, I thought, right, he's been lucky there. Came back, he had BJ's number. He'd figured he could go out there and finish it. And he did the same, I guess, with Gray. He went 5 rounds, then came back and finished him.
That was a great fight.
Amazing and the fact that he came within a whisker of losing both those fights in the first round. I don't think I've seen anybody come back like that and put on such a consummate performance.
Well, just the fact, I said on the second one, the fact that it was it was happening again. Everything he's seen before, he got rocked. He got amazing.
It was incredible. I mean, those 2 fights with Gray Maynard, for me, that's some of the best minutes of MMA I've ever seen.
Yeah,
I could watch those guys fight every weekend if you know they were able to do it. Absolutely phenomenal. And the same with the Ben Henderson fight.
Yeah,
another
it was
phenomenal fight. I can't wait to see it again. I've never been happier about an immediate rematch than this. Sometimes people say, oh well, give them a chance to fight somebody else. They don't necessarily need to do a rematch. Do it, and then have a rubber match if Edgar wins.
Yeah. So what's your pick then?
Oh, don't make me do a pick.
Yeah, come on.
I'm struggling on that.
I think Edgar's going to do it this time. I thought he might have been slightly unlucky last time. I'm not saying I'm not going to be one of those people who say, oh, he was robbed. He wasn't robbed. It was a really close fight. I think he might have been slightly unlucky. And I think, judging on the performance we've seen from him in the past, the second fight, he's kind of had to go his number a little bit more. And I think that's what we're going to see against Henderson.
Pip, what do you think?
I think I'm going to go with Henderson, but more because I'm thinking who I'd be most excited to see against Nate, who's been promised the title shot. And I think with Nate's size or height, he'd be able to have his way a bit more. With Edgar had really struggled to get inside, and obviously Nate's submission skills might. But whereas against someone as intimidating and athletic as Henderson, I think that's a really interesting fight. So
what a great fight that'll be.
I couldn't really pick it, so I'm just going to go with who I'd like to see next.
Plus, I'd really like to see Edgar at 145 pounds. I'd love to see him fight Jose Aldo. I think that'd be a phenomenal fight.
It's the biggest.
That's a good shout.
A fight they could have for Aldo really after this next one.
I think if he'd have moved down now, he probably would have got an immediate title shot. I think if he loses to Henderson, he's going to have to win one. But there's a lot of winnable fights for him. I'd love to see him fight Ross Pearson. I'd love to see him fight Henan Barao. There's so many guys.
And I just think the lightweight division is so stacked at the moment. Just you look at the run of people with. I mean, there was a lot of talk after Nate won of putting him against a Pettis for a #1 contender fight, which would be, and again, an amazing battle. But there's Pettis there. You've got a Maynard Guida coming up. You've got a lot of such a stacked division.
It's absolutely.
And Melendez obviously sitting over in Strikeforce, twiddling his thumbs, like praying for that moment to jump into that thing. So I think it would be a great move for Edgar. To possibly try dropping down.
Just lots and lots of good potential fights coming up, I think.
Yeah, well, one that's unfortunately not going to be coming up is Dominic Cruz and Uriah Faber, which the rubber match for those guys.
Yeah.
And more importantly, it's the coaches' fight for the Ultimate Fighter. It's another coaches' fight that we're not going to see.
Which
so yeah, it's a damn shame.
It's going to be interesting to see if, because they've not announced yet, if they're going to replace Dominic, because obviously this is the first season where it's all happening live anyway. So the fights are still going on. So he's had this injury now. We know he's out.
Yeah.
What are they going to do there? But
the guys in the house were saying that they don't want anyone but Cruz to coach them. Whether he's physically capable of doing that or not remains to be seen. I mean, if he's blown out his ACL,
team, doesn't it?
If he's blown out his ACL though, he needs to get the surgery done quickly. I've done that myself. You've got to get it fixed, and that's going to take precedent over coaching a TV show. I mean, for me, the really sad thing coming out of this is the fact that Dominic Cruz is a guy who gets by on his footwork and speed. Once you've done your ACL, you lose a lot of that. So, you know, is he going to be able to change his style up and come back from this injury? I guess the more pressing question for the UFC now is who fights Uriah Faber? And
I mean, they've said that they're keeping it on the card and it will be an interim title fight, they've said. So it is then, obviously, you'd imagine.
It's going to be Hayden Barao, I think. They're going to throw up there. I mean, people talk about Ivan Menjivar. I think that'd be kind of cruel on Brad Pickett because Pickett beat Menjivar quite significantly not too long ago. So Hayden Barao's the obvious choice. I mean, they were kind of talking about him as a title contender anyway. If the last Cruz-Faber fight hadn't been so close, Barao probably would have got the shot. So it looks like he'll be moved up, but we're expecting to find that out by Thursday. I think they've said they're going to make an announcement. So hopefully we can talk about that
talk about it next week.
Yeah.
So speaking of Tough, do you think Tough's sort of outlived its usefulness? Do you think it's still viable television? Do you think? I mean, what do you think of this season?
Yeah, I mean, for me, I hate reality TV shows. I cannot stand them. There's nothing I dislike more. So after 14 seasons now, I tend to fast forward through a lot of it. If there's a guy that I really like, I'll maybe watch the bits with him. Like Ogle, I was obviously watching the stuff with the Little Axe ahead of his fight. So there's bits of it that I kind of keep on track with. But I don't know. I think they're going to have to make changes. It's not done as well as Dana White would have hoped it to, ratings-wise, on FX. Apparently, FX are delighted with the ratings because it does more than what they normally do. But I think that's one thing about Tough. When it has got stale, they have changed it up a little bit, and I hope they continue to do that.
And they continue to bring through. Again, you can't question the fighters that it's brought through over the years. So even if it's not getting the viewing figures, as you were saying, it's a great bleeding ground and to bring people through. There's a young guy in this series. I can't think of his name, but he's just looking leaps and bounds above a lot of the rest. You can genuinely see some of these guys, particularly as they're going to the lower weight classes. So anything below lightweight, which from a lot of fans you will see it as quite a sparse divisions in the UFC at least. So you can see some of the guys on there at the moment being in the running for title shots in the next few years.
I think we see that now, don't we?
Yeah. Just
Nate Diaz,
so quickly. Yeah, exactly.
I mean, we saw John Dodson win bantamweight in the last season. John Dodson was ranked number 10 in the world at flyweight. So can you imagine having like a top 10 welterweight in the Tough House? That's obviously these guys didn't have the exposure, but that's how good he was. And I think they had a problem at one point, sort of around season 6, season 7, where the guys they were filling the house with were more personalities. They weren't necessarily the best fighters in the world, and they kind of weren't taking that many of them on as the seasons went. Now I think they've got just that right mixture. They've got the good personalities that people will watch. They've got the troublemakers, but they've also got a lot of talented guys in there.
Yeah.
And they're expanding it with a Tough Brazil they've got going on at the moment, running parallel, and you can see that continuing to be a great way of getting people.
And the smashes, or whatever they're going to call it, England versus Australia, that's going to be phenomenal.
I've got him in my ear. We've just got Jeff Monson on the phone.
Excellent.
So, Jeff, are you there? Can you hear us?
Yeah, I'm here. I can hear you guys.
Yeah, great. We're having a bit of issues with our digital wall, so we've got you on the phone today. Thanks so much for taking the time and having a chat with us. Really, really good to talk to you. I think it's probably been maybe 2 years since the last time I saw you at an event. So we've got lots and lots of good things coming up with you at the MMA Show coming up June 2nd and 3rd. Speaking of your no-gi match with Thiago Monstro.
Yep.
So how do you prepare for a guy? I mean, you're a big guy, but Monstro's a huge guy. How do you prepare for a guy like that?
You know, I really don't do anything differently preparing. You know, I like a lot of the guys that I train with, ATT are the smaller guys usually because they're quicker, and that gives me the most trouble. The bigger guys, you know, I don't usually get overpowered in matches, so that's usually not an issue. So, but we got Bigfoot Pizzal. The cat actually is still, I think, the Cage Warriors super heavyweight champion in England. He's back with American Top Team, so I train with him, so that's good. And so we do have a couple big guys, and Mario Rinaldi, big guy. So I just do my normal training, and the day of the fight or the event, I just do what I try to do what I'm going to do. So. Yeah.
Well, we're really, really looking forward to watching that. Also, we've got your super seminar coming up at Senni on the 2nd and 3rd. So again, looking forward to that. And I know a lot of our fans are signing up to that. But I got to ask you, while you're on the phone, can you give us a background of where the name Snowman came from? I love this story.
It's kind of when I first did Abu Dhabi back in 1999, a long time ago. And I really had no business even going, but Matt Hume was friends with the Prince or whatever that put on the tournament, and I got invited through him, and I went and nobody knew who I was, and obviously I was a white guy, and all my whole bracket was just filled up with Brazilians, and so I won a match, and then I won another match, and then obviously they're getting tougher. I was fighting Saulo Ribeiro and tougher guys that got on, and so they gave me the nickname like Avalanche, like a big white snowball, because it got bigger and bigger as the tournament got on. So it loosely got turned into Snowman. So.
And there it was. The Snowman was born. So we've had some.
Not the toughest nickname, but
we've had some questions come in from our fan base on Twitter as well. And one of our fans, MMA UK Chat, has asked, you've not been finished in over 26 fights since 2007. So do you reckon a UFC run is possible for you at this point in your career?
It's possible. I have 3 more fights at least with M1. I want to try to win that title, and I think, a return to the UFC is more possible after obviously UFC won't even talk to you when you have a contract with someone else. So I'll finish that and hopefully win the title at M1. And I know I said it before, but if I do come back in the UFC, it'll probably be at 205, light heavyweight. So anything's possible. It's kind of up to me to keep winning. I think if you win, especially if you're champion of another organization, then UFC wants to have you on their organization. So then then that's a possibility.
Yeah, absolutely. Well, we'll look forward to that. And again, Jeff, we'll look forward to seeing you at Senni. We're about out of time for this segment, but Senni, June 2nd and 3rd, we'll come up and say hello and make sure we get some time with you there as well. So thanks a lot for coming on today. Really, really good to talk to you, and we'll see you again real soon.
I appreciate it. I look forward to the Senni.
Okay, thanks,
Cheers,
Jeff. So once again, we're out of time.
Always happens.
Always out of time. So for Scroobius Pip, for number 48, Brad Wharton, I'm Bret Hollywood Freeman. It's not go time, but it's time to go. We'll see you next week on Sports Tonight Live presents The Cage.
Stay ahead of the game with Sports Tonight Live. Don't miss a thing. Subscribe to our YouTube channel. Search for Sports Tonight Live on Facebook and like our fan page. Follow Sports Tonight TV on Twitter and tweet us your thoughts and opinions. Sports Tonight Live, it's the platform for the fans.